15 June 1944, Normandy, France. A German patrol moves cautiously along a narrow street lined with damaged stone buildings. The fighting has passed through only hours earlier. Doors hang open. Broken windows stare into the darkness. Nothing appears unusual. Then a soldier pushes through a doorway in search of cover. A fraction of a second later, the building erupts with a violent blast. Dust, timber, and masonry burst into the street. What seemed like an abandoned structure has become a weapon. Across occupied Europe, British planners searched constantly for ways to slow German movement, disrupt patrols, and make every captured position feel dangerous. One of the lesser-known answers was a family of concealed demolition devices designed to transform ordinary buildings into deadly traps. Hidden inside walls, staircases, or structural supports, these charges could destroy a structure or kill anyone attempting to occupy it. They were simple in appearance, but devastating in effect. The concept was not entirely new. Armies had long used booby traps. Yet the British approach during the Second World War refined the idea into a practical system that resistance fighters, commandos, and special operations personnel could deploy quickly. The aim was not merely destruction, it was uncertainty. Every doorway, every cellar, and every apparently safe shelter could become a source of fear. That psychological effect mattered enormously. Modern warfare depends upon movement, confidence, and momentum. Remove those things, and even a powerful army begins to hesitate. The forgotten devices developed by Britain were part of a wider struggle fought not only with guns and tanks, but with deception, sabotage, and doubt. Their story reveals how ordinary buildings became weapons, and why that transformation mattered. By 1940, Britain faced a problem unlike any it had encountered before. Much of continental Europe had fallen under German control. Resistance groups operated in secret, often with limited equipment and little access to heavy explosives. Conventional demolition methods frequently required large quantities of explosives, specialized knowledge, and significant time. Those requirements made sabotage dangerous and difficult. German forces depended heavily upon infrastructure. Buildings served as headquarters, barracks, storage depots, and communication centers. Destroying them could disrupt operations, but placing obvious demolition charges risked immediate discovery. Resistance fighters needed devices that were compact, concealable, and effective. Existing solutions often failed. Large charges were difficult to transport. Timed explosives could be unreliable under harsh conditions. Mechanical fuses sometimes malfunctioned after exposure to moisture or rough handling. In occupied territory, every extra minute spent preparing a target increased the chance of arrest. British intelligence organizations recognized this challenge. The organization most closely associated with such efforts was the wartime organization known as the Special Operations Executive. Its mission was to support resistance movements and encourage sabotage behind enemy lines. To achieve that mission, engineers needed tools that ordinary people could carry and use with minimal training. The challenge appeared almost impossible. The device had to be small enough to hide, powerful enough to damage structural elements, simple enough for irregular fighters, and reliable enough to function after transport through hostile territory. At the same time, it needed to avoid attracting attention. In occupied Europe, even carrying suspicious equipment could be a death sentence. The solution emerged through a combination of engineering ingenuity and practical experience. Working with specialists connected to British research and special operations programs, designers produced compact demolition charges that could be hidden within buildings and activated by delayed mechanisms or other triggering systems. If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. Many of these devices relied upon plastic explosives. Unlike traditional explosives, plastic explosive could be molded into different shapes. Imagine modeling clay with immense destructive power. A relatively small quantity could be placed directly against a critical beam, support column, or wall section. Some charges weighed less than a kilogram. Others were larger, depending upon the target. Delayed action mechanisms frequently used chemical fuses. A corrosive liquid slowly ate through a retaining wire. Once the wire failed, a spring-driven striker hit a detonator. The concept was remarkably simple. Like an alarm clock releasing tension after a set period, the mechanism converted a predictable chemical reaction into a timed explosion. Manufacturing occurred across several British facilities involved in wartime explosives production. Exact figures remain uncertain because many records were classified or fragmented after the war. Estimates suggest thousands of sabotage devices of various types were produced and distributed. Containers were often disguised. Some resembled everyday objects. Others were packaged specifically for covert delivery by parachute. Operational use stretched across occupied Europe. Resistance groups in France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and elsewhere received British-supplied sabotage equipment. Buildings used by German personnel could be rendered hazardous. Safe locations suddenly became dangerous. Structures thought secure could collapse without warning. Documented accounts describe resistance fighters targeting headquarters, storage facilities, and temporary accommodation. In many cases, the physical damage mattered less than the uncertainty created. German personnel increasingly understood that ordinary surroundings might conceal hidden threats.
A seemingly abandoned building could no longer be trusted. Records remain incomplete. Some operations were deliberately concealed, while others were never fully documented. Historians therefore distinguish carefully between confirmed incidents and later claims. What is clear is that concealed demolition devices became an important component of the wider sabotage campaign. Compared with German demolition methods, British designs generally prioritized concealment and ease of use. German engineers possessed highly effective explosives, but British special operations equipment focused specifically on resistance warfare. American organizations later developed similar tools, yet British programs had begun refining many of these concepts earlier in the conflict. The British advantage often lay in practicality. Devices were designed for people who were not professional soldiers. Simplicity increased reliability. Fewer moving parts meant fewer opportunities for failure. That philosophy influenced sabotage equipment throughout the war and beyond. Assessing the overall impact is difficult. Buildings destroyed by concealed charges rarely changed the course of entire campaigns. Their significance was cumulative. Each successful operation disrupted schedules, consumed resources, and forced German forces to devote additional effort to security. The psychological effect may have been even greater. Fear cannot be measured as easily as structural damage. Yet armies repeatedly altered procedures when confronted by hidden threats. Extra inspections, delayed occupation of buildings, and increased caution all imposed costs. The legacy of these devices extends beyond the Second World War. Concepts developed for covert demolition influenced later military engineering, special operations doctrine, and resistance warfare. Surviving examples can occasionally be found in museums dedicated to wartime intelligence and special operations history, though many original devices were destroyed after the conflict. Return now to that street in Normandy. The building appears ordinary. Stone walls, wooden beams, empty rooms. Yet hidden within its structure is a carefully designed piece of engineering created hundreds of kilometers away by people who have split Undertag is often a battle of uncertainty. The explosion lasts only an instant. The effect lasts much longer. Soldiers become cautious. Commanders become suspicious. Confidence gives way to doubt. The building has done more than collapse. It has delivered a message. That message echoes across occupied Europe. No place is entirely safe. No shelter is guaranteed. No ordinary structure is necessarily ordinary at all. The forgotten British device did not rely upon size. It did not depend upon armor, speed, or overwhelming firepower. It relied upon surprise. It relied upon ingenuity. It relied upon turning the familiar into the dangerous. And that is why these hidden weapons mattered. They transformed walls into warnings, rooms into risks, and buildings into traps.